Greetings ladies and gentlemen, Adrian here. Welcome back to the channel. I've been playing in the open beta of Legends of Aria, an upcoming early access MMORPG that's inspired by old school sandbox MMOs of the past. I'll be sharing some early impressions so far from the open beta, which ends this coming Monday, and if you want to give it a look yourself, just look it up on Steam, Legends of Aria. Let's begin with character creation, shall we? And after a quick 3 gig download, you are now ready to enter the world, and it's time to make your avatar. Character creation is very basic, no different races here, you're just going to play human, and besides just getting a quick look of what the graphics or the expected graphics in-game is going to be, the most important aspect of character creation is picking a set of skills that your character will start with, and these are categorized into warrior and mage and archer and blacksmith and advanced. Now this doesn't mean that for the rest of the game you're only going to be getting skills of that stereotype. No, Aria is that sort of game typical of other sandbox game, which is the more skills and abilities that you use, then the more proficient you will get moving forward, so you can diversify and grow out of your starting skills. Once that's done, you also get a look of Baradhor on the world map, and for the open beta there's 4 locations that you can start in. Each of these areas have their own town areas with all the NPCs and merchants and all that stuff. But also keep in mind that some of these could be beneficial for the crafting profession that you want to progress in, because resource nodes, like mining ores for example, you'll find them a lot more in the town of Helm in the northeastern side of the world map. Once all that early character creation stuff was done, I was plummeted into the world, and the first thing that greets me is a quick UI tutorial. And as far as first impressions go, oh yeah, this is pretty much old school with very little hand holding here, guys. You will get a magical blue orb as an advisor who you can interact with a skill on your hotbar to ask simple questions like, where do I go to find something? Or what can I do with this thing? It doesn't give you a direct answer, which is why I say there's very little hand holding, but the advisor does offer hints and tips about what or where you need to be to set you on the right path. From then on, right now, the open beta, it's down to you to decide what you want to do. You can either go on and explore or start picking a progression path for either your crafting or for combat. As you can see, it's pretty much a top-down MMORPG. Movement isn't with your WASD, it's with your right mouse button, which you'll need to hold down to begin running in a direction that you want to go. Now let's talk about the UI for a little bit, because I found this quite refreshing in comparison to the other modern MMOs that I play. So when you want to open up your backpack, you hit the B button or hit the bag icon on your UI, and you literally see your bag. Like, you can see what's inside your bag, you can move it around, and your bag inventory will have weight as well. So Legends of Aria doesn't deal with inventory slots, it deals with weight. Items in your bag, if you have weapons or harvesting tools like mining picks and hatchets for wood, you can just drag them to a couple of hotbars on the left side of the screen for easy access, and that's going to be important later on. So another obvious thing for me to do as far as my first steps in Legends of Aria is to go and try and kill something out in the landscape just to get a feel for what the combat is like. From the town of Helm, just moving north towards the graveyard area, the entire landscape so far for the world has been littered with things. First of all, you've got all your trees that you can chop down for wood, all these rocks that you can mine for stone and ore, and of course wild animals. So far I've seen bears and giant rats, deer, wolves as well, and all of them can be killed. Now when you walk up to one of these things to kill them, right clicking or left clicking doesn't work. Legends of Aria uses combat stances, so you have to get into a combat stance, get in range, and then you can start hitting them with the skills on your hotbar. That changes depending on what weapons you have equipped and how far you've progressed in your fighting skills. So for example, I pick fighter and I'm using a longsword, which is a slashing weapon. So the more I use that longsword, the more I'll progress in my slashing skill, and the higher that goes, the more skills I'll unlock to drag and use on my hotbar. Powerful skills will require stamina, especially for fighter archetypes, and if you're using magic, of course, it'll consume mana instead. And the one thing I've noticed fighting all these little critters so far is that the combat isn't very fluid. It's almost as if both your character and the creature you're fighting are kind of like taking turns when it comes to damage. And whenever I hit my power skill, it doesn't fire off right away either. It just says it will fire off this skill at the next opportunity. So in short, the combat here, the pace is really slow. It's only the early levels though, so it may get better moving forward. But again, keep in mind, this is the style of game that Legends of Aria is going to be. Things are moving at a slower pace compared to modern day MMORPGs. Another interesting thing that I've noticed is that all these creatures on the landscape, there is some sort of organic AI when it comes to the food chain. So you'll see bears chasing deers, wolves chasing giant rats, and they will kill each other on the landscape, so you can just walk up to a dead corpse and harvest it, which will give you either leather for hides or meat for cooking, and almost everything that you can get from these corpses you can take back to town and turn that into something beneficial when it comes to crafting. If you come across a dead adventurer, maybe another player who died, you can actually cut off their head and take it back to town, and I've done that trying to sell it to a vendor who didn't want to buy it from me for obvious reasons. So once I got the hang of combat, I then ventured out, just moving around, getting a feel for the world, and I came across this one dude who was chopping down wood in the forest, and even before I reached him, he typed in chat, "Yes, how can I help you?" And I'm like, wow, this guy read my mind. So my question was, where do you get a hatchet? Where do you get a harvesting tool for wood? And graciously told me, head to the town of Helm. On the west side of town, there's going to be a vendor that you can buy it from. And that was it. That was my first interaction with another player in Legends of Aria. And that wasn't the last of that sort of interaction. When you get to town, you'll see everybody that's progressing their crafting. It's pretty much gathered around all the crafting stations. So there's the blacksmith area, there's the cooking area. And so far, in terms of the community here on the open beta, it sort of reflects the type of game that Legends of Aria is. Like I said, it's nothing like modern day MMORPGs where interaction is sort of optional and you can pretty much learn things about the game on your own or via an external website or watching a YouTube video. In here, everybody's happy to share experiences and give you advice along the way, which is nice. And speaking of skills, there's over 100 that you can progress in, and you can bring up the skill window with the K button and browse through everything that Legends of Aria has to offer. Think of pretty much everything that you would relate to a skill progression in a fantasy MMORPG, and it's all there. From animal lore to animal taming, which lets you tame horses out in the world, to all the usual suspects: blacksmithing, lumberjack, cooking, fisherman, magics, and more. And like I said earlier, the higher your proficiency in some of these skills are, then the better the results will be, especially for gathering resources. So that's what I did next. I went to a merchant to get a hatchet, which leads me to the next thing that I want to point out is that interacting with vendors and NPCs, especially NPCs that you want to buy and sell things from, you're not going to be greeted with the usual UI that you get. A simple box where you can just drag and drop or right click and all this stuff. No. When you head to a shop, you'll see that the vendor has laid out his wares on tables, and you can just hover your mouse over the item that you want to buy and right click it there. You can still interact with the merchant and you can have a little chat, and sometimes they'll offer to train you in a certain skill. So if you talk to the blacksmithing merchant, he'll offer to increase your blacksmithing skill for about 3 silver as an additional way to help you progress faster if that's what you want to do. So I found that pretty refreshing because of that old school vibe that kind of permeates throughout the game now. So once I got my hatchet, off I went to the nearest tree, and as I said at the top of the video, all you need to do is swap between your equipped weapons. So if you had a sword on, just swap to your hatchet and your skill bar will change to reflect that. So simply hit the gathering skill and click on the tree and you begin chopping away. At the very early levels, and if you're a fresh new tune on Legends of Aria, you're not going to get resources right away when you gather. You will see your skill progressing in the middle of the screen in 0.2 increments. So you will waste about 3 to 4 trees before you eventually start seeing yields in your bags. Needless to say, this kind of slows everybody down, and it's going to take a while before you actually get good at something. So progression, again, it's not going to be like your standard MMORPGs where if you put in 2-3 hours in a day, you can pretty much max out your crafting. This is not one of those games, and because there's hundreds of skills in this game, you can just imagine how long it's going to take you to progress some of these skills. Will they be beneficial in the future? Of course. Well, I haven't been around long enough to check out like the in-game economy and auctioning and all that stuff. Assuming your crafting and gathering skill is really high, then yeah, you probably will benefit a lot if you sell these to other players. And because there's so many skills, I do like that they'll let you favorite and track skills. So when you favorite a skill on the skill book, it's just going to show up on the first page. And if you don't want to keep opening your skill UI, you can just track it, which will put it on the top right of the screen for easy access. And so far, that's the bulk of what I've been doing right now, just exploring the various different skills and gathering resources. But like I said, one of the biggest differences you will definitely encounter if you want to jump into a sandbox MMORPG like Legends of Aria is that you'll have to create your own sense of purpose. The PvE in this game will come down to what you want to accomplish as a player. So far, there's no main story, there's no main quests, and Aria has said that is not the type of game that they want to create. However, you will get missions in game. I've come across a couple of people, a couple of NPCs in town that do offer you some sort of purpose purpose, if you're really dying for some PvE and you want to have some goal to work towards, especially if you're a solo player, then yeah, there are missions that you can pick up and do. For example, head south and take out a band of bandits, or kill some skeletons, or get rid of the wolves and come back and grab your reward, which is usually in the form of money or some items. But so far, that's been it. PvP is another aspect that Legends of Aria will have, and it will take place in the open world because it won't happen in towns where it's all protected and everything is safe, especially for the new player. But way outside during launch and during the early access, which is coming up real soon, you probably will see a lot of that open world PvP happening. You know, you got the good guys, the merchants, and then you have your band of bandits. There's a karma system in place to reward those who do good and those who do bad. And yes, full loot on death. Another aspect of Legends of Aria that I have not checked out yet in the open beta is housing. So players can in fact own houses, build houses in here. All you need is a land deed that you can get in town for a large sum of money. Gathering money in the early levels for me has been a bit of a mixed bag because you either have to craft a lot of items and sell them, or gather lots of resources and sell them, or kill lots of enemies from giant rats to skeletons in the graveyard, depending on the town you're in, to pick up copper, which eventually leads to silver, and so on and on and on. And then you can go buy your land deed. So it's going to be another long form of progression when it comes to housing. And I don't think I'll get one in time before the open beta ends, but I am planning to jump into the early access and the 7-day head start, so I may look into that and share more information when I get it. So overall, just to wrap up my first impressions and my first thoughts about Legends of Aria, having never played this before, I'll break it down, simplify, and summarize things. First of all, let's start with the graphics and aesthetics. It's not a pretty game, you guys, but it doesn't need to be. It doesn't have to be a pretty game. I like the minimalistic look and feel of the UI, and it's not that bad to navigate. On the performance side of things, so far, I know it's open beta, I know it's going to be in early access, but I do once in a while get the occasional FPS stutter. So far for me, playing from Southeast Asia with a ping of 240 ms, I've had no lag, no rubber banding, none of that issue so far on the one server that they've opened for open beta. The music is okay, it's not great, production values are not the best, and for a game like this, you would hope that they pour more of that resources into the gameplay to make it better. For me, combat is the most jarring. While I do like that it's an old school system, you have to get into a stance to take on enemies. The animations can be a little turn off for me, especially for melee. I've yet to roll a caster or mage sort of archetype to see what that's like, but so far the combat can be an eyesore, and later down the line, I plan to do a lot of combat, and at this point, I'm not sure if that's going to be changing moving forward or not. As for the progression system, the crafting systems, I think they're great. I think having that open-ended and letting players decide what they want to do, what they want to accomplish, what they want to chase is an essential experience for a sandbox MMORPG. And it's going to take me some time before I hit a high enough level with the skills that I want to pursue to then conclude if that journey was worth it or was it too grindy due to the lack of things to do in between or not. But at this early stage, I like the amount of skills and options being offered to players, and I like that there's no easy way to get there. And to wrap up my final thoughts here, yep, that old school feeling for this sandbox MMO is actually pretty decent. And throughout the entire time I was playing this weekend, I kept asking myself the question in my head because I reviewed Albion Online, which is another sandbox MMORPG of this ilk, sometime last year, and I was doing the comparisons in my head. Like, what's Legends of Aria really doing to stand out from what's already out there in terms of classic MMOs of the past and modern day sandbox MMOs today? And besides the obvious, which is the graphics and the combat system, I would say Albion is more fluid. It also has the better UI design. But Aria definitely encapsulates that old school feeling better. And at this point, even though it's still early days, I think it has the better community so far. Now, the more I play this, the more comparisons I can make. So that's it from me, guys. Once the open beta ends, if you want to jump into the early access and get into the head start, you can buy one of 3 packages. The cheapest package is called the Noble package, which costs $29.99 US, and I believe you can get it either from Steam or from the official Legends of Aria website itself. Is it worth the money? $30 for a game like this in early access or heading into early access? Logical answer is no, not yet. I think there's still a lot more to come from Legends of Aria and early access and all the funds that they will receive. Hopefully, fingers crossed, goes back into the game. And if there are no improvements months from now, then worst case scenario, this game will end up free to play. But hopefully it doesn't get to that point because I do see potential here in Legends of Aria. So hit the like button if you enjoyed the video and feel free to subscribe to the channel for more MMO content. For those of you that have tried Legends of Aria this weekend during the open beta or are founders, hey, feel free to let me know your thoughts about Legends of Aria. What do you like about the game so far? What do you dislike? And what are your hopes for the early access? All that stuff, leave them in the comments section below. Once again, I'm Adrian, and I thank you for watching. What up? You've reached the end screen. Thank you very much for watching that video. And if you want to watch more, you can click on the cards at the bottom here. Any one of them would do. And if you like what you see, feel free to subscribe to the channel by clicking the big round button somewhere down there. You'll see it.